to play Tabletop Inc. Now, this game is a board game about board games. But before we before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because board games are amazing, so much so that we're playing a board game about them. All right, Randy, tell us a little bit more about Tabletop Inc.
So this was a game found pre-order that you could do. Originally, I ordered Meeples Inc., but there was a lawsuit that involved the word Meeple, and the entire game had to change names, so now it's Tabletop Inc. when it came out. So I still don't understand that because everybody uses the word Meeple. It should be common vernacular, but there you have it. Tabletop Inc. is a 2025 release. It's got a Board Game Geek rating of 6.9 and a rank of 15,979 currently. It's a 1 to 6 player game, average length of 40 to 120 minutes. It says the minimum age should be 16 plus. I don't think it needs to be. It's just a typical worker placement game. I mean, there's...
I wouldn't go too much younger, though, so...
The design is by Joseph N. Adams and Madeline Adams. The artist is not listed, so I'm not sure who did the little cartoonish art on the board. The publisher is Cotswold Games. There was another publisher, Cogito Ergo Meeple, which I don't know if that was the original name for Cotswold Games and they had to change their name too because of the word Meeple being in it, but there's no reference to that on the box that I saw. The mechanics, like as we mentioned, worker placement, during game goals and in-game goals that are added in with the expansion that came with it. When I ordered this off GameFound, it had a list price of £115 for the all-in, which translates to roughly $152. The base game, with just the cardboard pieces, is £45 at $58.45, and the deluxe version, which adds in some of the wood bits, is $89.62. So the all-in includes the Golden Pear expansion and several the golden metal bits. So basically, when I look at Geek Market right now, there's two listings for this for $199 and $210 that are all in. There's one out there, interestingly enough, for $50.99 that says it includes the Golden Pear and the wooden tables. So I don't know if that's an all-in or if it's some of the deluxe and combined with the Golden Pear expansion, but missing some of this. But for the $50.99, that's not a bad price for this, given how much this costs for everything.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about quality of components. There's definitely some very pretty things going on. So you have the miniature dice for the dice resource. You got the
magnifying glass.
The magnifying tool. And then you also have your timers and your light bulbs that are shaped like that.
They're supposed to be inspiration. You got metal coins.
Yeah, you do have metal coins. The meeples are screen printed. However, they do have a box head instead of a circle head, and I wonder if that has to do with...
I think they went all out of changing the shapes of everything to get away from any reference.
Any possible... you also do have these acrylic standees that are actually really cool. You do get a board. There's a map.
Yeah, I don't understand why they went with a cardboard main board and then
a matte sideboard. I don't know.
Because the matte sideboard's really nice.
Yeah. Then you also have the boxes to make the game. So these are your bases, and then you've got the top, and all of them have different cool things with it. Then you actually have a table to put your players around, or your designers around. There was a lot of cool pieces that they put in this. The trophies for if you got the top tier for your games, you actually got these metal trophies. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on over here. I'm probably going to give this a 10. I don't see how they could do anything more with the
I'm
pieces.
going to dock it a half point because of the cardboard main board versus the playmat. It just looks strange. I'd give it a 9.5. But yeah, I think they've really gone above and beyond. They also included sleeves for all the cards.
Yeah.
And they have a cardboard version of the game tables, but they included, not only is it a wooden game table, but it has a felt lining in the middle, just like our game table if we flipped over the top. So I love that. So they went all out on the bits. I mean, there's almost nothing it could upgrade more than what it is, other than the fact that the board is kind of odd, having a play mat on one half and then the main board on the other. So.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to the theme. This is a board game about making board games, okay?
Yeah.
So you have to go get some ideas, then you have to do some design work, and then you have to make sure the mechanic and play test things. So there thematically a lot going on. I loved that each of the board games that you create have a different top box.
Yeah.
So that seems very cool. And then you get to end up displaying them as you finish them and give them trophy values. And then you can also take them to the convention and another thing. So that the theme is definitely integrated into the game theme. But I wasn't a huge fan of the art. I don't know what it... the board is a little too busy. It was very hard to make it all work. I understand why they did what they did. I don't know if it's the color palette that's throwing me off or the actual art style. But there's a gap there. And like the humans that they've got don't really match with the like the standees don't particularly match that. So they did a great job in taking this theme and putting it into the gameplay. That worked out great. There's a lot of cool pieces that kind of enhance that theme, but I didn't care for the art. So, and there's a few things that didn't quite fit, like the standees going into that. So I'm I'll give this an 8.5 in theme because I just didn't care for the art very much.
Yeah, the art didn't bother me as much as it did you. What bothered me the most was actually the generic vanilla naming of the games. It's clear there's some that are supposed to be references to actual board games.
Zombies.
Yeah, they're just like vampires, zombies, Vikings. They could have done a play on the game. Like there's one that has a picture of Mars on it that's clearly a reference to terraforming Mars. They could have named it some kind of play on terraforming Mars. I think the only one I saw that looked like it was a play on the name of the game was Gloomhaven. There was a Merc, something another, but it was it was clear it was Gloomhaven that they were trying to play the name of. Most of them are just very generic, like viticulture. There's one called Wine with an exclamation point, and that's it. It's like. Really couldn't have done something better than
their play was done on the art, and that's where you knew what it was because of the art. So they didn't necessarily play with the names, and it may be because they were hit with the meeple thing that maybe they were a little cautious.
They went a little too cautious.
Yeah, they went a little too cautious on that. But I mean, still, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, apart from that, I think everything's fine. I think the board is busy. And I don't understand why there were two sides to the board that were laid out differently but had the same action spaces. So it was very confusing because when you get it out, you got to... when I put the first time we played it, we had the other side of the mat out, and then we got it back out, and you can't really tell the difference between the two until you start playing. It's like, wait a minute, where's that action space at? It's no longer where it belongs. It's way over there. So
this one's discombobulated. Nothing are together.
Everything's kind of just randomly hodgepodge on there. They included a space for you to store boxes on, but you really don't need it. So, I didn't understand the choice of having two sides to the board unless you're going to do something different. Maybe the icons that you get as far as bonuses are different. I didn't check that, but I still would have kept it in the same layout. I wouldn't have changed the layout of the board.
Yeah, that really confused me going into a second play and being like, where the heck? I'll be honest, I was like, I want to do this. Where's it at, guys? We were all hunting.
But yeah, I think it's just because the color palette blends in together. The other thing that Adam brought up is when you're playing, some of the spaces require you to have 4 players in order to access them, but they have different colors on the different spaces, so they don't have a consistent color scheme or color palette. So it could mean something different, but clearly they say 4 plus, 4 plus, 4 plus. So they have the same purpose, but they have different colors. Yeah, it's like, why did you choose to do that?
Well, it's just anything in the box, then
Yeah.
you kind of infer that they were 4 players. So in that case, but yeah, it did throw me off to begin with. I'm like, why is it red? Why is it blue? Why is it green? Why does it matter? I don't know.
But then you got the playmat for the Golden Pair expansion, and it's busy too, but it doesn't bother me because if you take the tokens off that we've already covered with it, it's just a white circle, so you can clearly see where the action space is, and then below it is a action token holding space that you would get when you go take that action. So that board didn't bother me because it looks like a convention, people walking down the aisles and hitting.
Well, then this is obviously a factory, but I don't know why it was it was kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Well, but what's your score with you?
I think I'm probably right with you with an 8.5 because it does integrate into the gameplay. There's
definitely some cool elements.
There are definitely cool elements to it, and they do take most of the aspects of designing and building a game and put it in there. They don't have so much as a design; it's more on the manufacturing side. But they do have play testing and other stuff that you have to integrate into it. So I think 8.5 is fair. One thing I didn't understand was why do you have a fireman or a firewoman? I guess in this case,
gamers come in all shapes and sizes. Randy.
Yeah, I guess she's on her break and she gets to play test.
But these are like really like human, but the rest of the game is so not. That's what threw me off. But then what were you supposed to make them for? I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird. All right, moving on to the actual rulebook. Randy, how was that?
So the main rulebook is 18 pages length. There's actually 3 boxes to this, so when you get it, if you got the all in, you're going to be taking up a lot of storage. You're going to actually need. One of the things we didn't mention in the part of this is actual wood. The
shelf,
the Kallax shelf they've got, which is actually nicer than Kallax the way it's built. But yeah, you're going to need a whole Kallax shelf for this game alone because it's got 3 of these boxes. Now, one of them is smaller than the others, but this matches the cover of one of the other boxes. And it has, all the contents pictured along with counts of the pieces, which is nice. It's got the layout and setup of how you do the board. And yeah, the other side is actually cleaner on here, but it's not any cleaner when you look at it on the actual board. I would rather have that because it's got the color sections separated by the actions. And I guess that's what they're representing here. The colors is the different types of actions, but they're grouped together here. But we ended up with this background that just covers all that, so it just makes it all fade away. Then the gameplay, it's a typical worker placement game. Once you figure out all you're going to do is play your actions or recall your people, it's not much to the game. It's just what are the actions you do. So the rest of the book is all about the actions from that point until page 12. That's the end of it. The first half of page 12 is on the side. The other side then starts the solo mode, and that goes until you get to the reference. So it's only about a page and a half. And then you get reference for all the cards and what they mean. I say all, but it's actually most of the cards. There's still some cards we found that were not included in here that caused us a little confusion, but not too bad. Most of the iconography is represented at the back, and we were able to infer from that what we were trying to do with the different cards, pretty much. So I don't remember ever having to go online to research anything during this game. So I think the rulebook does a pretty good job. I just wish the actual board would have looked like the one in there. Then there's a little 6-page one, if you want to call it that, for the expansion. The expansion actually is really nice. It doesn't add a whole lot, but it's just enough that it makes the game more complete. But it is a quadfold. It's not even a trifold. It's a quadfold.
You know how much Randy loves
I
those.
hate quadfolds or trifolds. So this, but it does go through and tell you what all the new add-ons are, and it does a good job. It's got the components list, and again, the number of them, and the changes to the setup, as well as what all the different things do. And it just adds on some basic, another option as far as taking actions, because actions are very limited in this game. You can do this stuff to get other points, which is nice to have more variety of scoring, because there's not a lot of ways to score in this game. So giving you a little bit more variety, and then some goals for during the game to try to achieve.
All right, so what's your score?
I'll probably go ahead and give the rulebook a 7.5, because I think it does a good job. It's not too long. It gets you into the game. I mean, it's a worker placement game, so it doesn't really require a lot of, detail. But it's got enough that it didn't have any confusion when you read through it. And, I hate the folds on that, but that's a particular preference of mine. But there's nothing wrong with the expansion. It's very easy to understand. I think the only question I had was because there's a certain number of pairs in the game. This is going to be a very rare occurrence, but when you take an item, there is a pair item that gives you one of those pairs. And if you were to cycle the item deck, which is very unlikely, I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it could.
What? Randy, no.
You could end up burning more pairs than there actually are in the game. It's very unlikely, but it could happen.
Well, when you out. Don't pick that card. That seems silly.
So, I'd say I think 7.5 is a good score for this.
All right. So moving on to the actual gameplay, like Randy said, it is a worker placement game. So basically what you end up doing is you start out the game with 4, not meeples. And there's,
I think they call them moomans in replacement of
meeples. I'm definitely not using that.
I will never use that terminology.
I will say workers. Okay, so you start with 4 workers, okay? And you have several different locations that you can play them. They're either mostly around gaining resources, building components to your game, components, mechanisms, or your actual board, publishing the game. There is one section for end of game victory points. There are ways to also get additional workers and bringing them to your game table, as they can either serve as a actual worker or they can serve as an action, depending on the person that you end up acquiring. And then you also have to play that worker to your board, so that's a different action. So that's, and then you do there's cards with random things on it. That's an action.
Items.
There's a lot to do. And then they obviously, with the expansion, they added going to the convention. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to take a worker. I'm going to do the thing. Okay, so I'm going to get the resource that's on for a placement bonus, and then I take the action. Now, there are action spaces that require payment. So this little yellow construction hat, I don't actually know what that symbol is, but it looks like a yellow construction hat. You have to pay what is in that yellow box, and then you get the placement bonus and that action ability. Now, Miranda, why would you pay extra to do the exact same thing? Well, typically the bonuses are they're a lot better. Some will give you straight up victory points, some give you a free action, so those are more upgraded. And 3 players, it was kind of tight because you didn't have that 4th player spot. 4 players was beautiful. Like, it had some tension, but not a lot. But when 3 players without that 4th player, that was rough.
Yeah, the first round being 3rd really stunk for me because all the actions I needed were already covered.
AKA, he wanted his workers.
Yeah, because you don't start out with resources, really. You start out with, as 3rd player, you get 2 coin. You get a coin for each position you are from 2nd and 3rd. Then it changes resources to other stuff like victory points and so on. But the first player gets nothing, but they don't need it because they're going to go to a free open white space and get whatever resource it has. But as 3rd player, all the good spots are already taken, and
there was plenty to do.
The problem is those things stay there for 4 actions or until somebody recalls.
Yeah.
But usually most people are going to recall at the end of all their actions.
Which you don't have to.
No, you don't have to. As long as you play 1 action, you can recall. But
Yeah.
you can't recall after you've just recalled. You have to wait and play an action first. But basically, when I try to take an action, I have to wait till everybody gets rid of their 4 actions and recalls before I can take the spot I needed at the beginning.
Okay, you don't need it. You're just wanting it.
I have a certain strategy that I play.
Okay, so
I had to alter the strategy to take advantage of spaces.
Oh, you mean how games work?
Yes. But I still lost as a result.
Uh-huh. And I'm not mad
I blame
about
Adam, yeah.
I'm the one that beat you.
No, Adam beat me. No, you're right. It was you. I blame you.
He's trying to take my win away from me.
Yeah.
Do you see this? Okay. Overall, it is a worker placement. It was enjoyable. It's definitely not the best worker placement I've experienced. Okay, so the one thing that bugged me is mechanisms and token to get them. It's the same spaces. I feel like they should have been separate spaces.
I think those should have been separated as well.
Because that was kind of weird and awkward. And then, because it didn't make sense to do the same thing.
Because the box is separate. Then those are the 3 things you need to get your game completed: is the box for storage, the mechanism, and the components. And if you don't have all 3, you can't publish the game. So
yeah, that area got really, really tight.
Yes.
Towards the end of the game, and there was nothing you could really do about it. I mean, you had to go find other ways to get free actions, is what I ended up doing. And that was the only way to really.
And I'm glad they had that. That was really nice. Although I still think your card was broken.
No, it makes sense because all the other ones give you basically a secondary action. It was just this one I got to choose what the secondary action was. So, well, the first 2, both of them, but they're harder to get too. So there's that piece of it. Overall, really happy. Kind of enjoyed it. I'm okay with an 8 for this. I thought it was good. It was solid.
I don't think I'm quite there. I think I'm more of a 7.5.
I was debating that, so I'm not.
Yeah, I'm
not too far off.
I think it's it's a decent worker placement game. I would definitely not rank this anywhere near like Lords of Waterdeep or Viticulture or any of those type of games. But as far as, it gives you, if you're interested in the concept of building a game, it does kind of give you a feel of doing that.
Well, I did like the convention bit.
The convention bit add-on, it did feel necessary. I would not want to play this anymore without that.
Right, then that's why, but I do agree with you. It's not the best out there, but it's decent.
Yeah.
And the pieces are pretty top-notch.
The pieces, if you got the deluxe.
If you like the art. For some reason, I don't.
And my biggest problem with it is the scoring. It's just very tight and limited in scoring. You basically get points for your games you produce, which makes sense.
Well, you get victory points along the way.
You either can score based upon the component values that are in it, added up, or if you claim a trophy, then you have a card you start with at the beginning. That was the part I had the most problem with.
So here's my thing about the trophy card. I feel like you should have gotten a card, played a trophy, then got a new card. I feel like those cards should have.
Yeah, because you get one and they're not balanced. So I had one that was 14, 14, and 8. So I was getting less points if I went for the high end one. Thankfully, I had my score, my bonus at the beginning for my variable player power gave me 6 additional points if I went for the lowest trophy. There wasn't a lot of competition for the low trophy, so I was able to actually score more points by getting a level 1 trophy than I did a level 2 or a 3.
Right. Well, but that's my thing is I feel like once you gain a trophy, you should have to discard that card and pick up a new one.
Yeah.
Because what happens is because there's different requirements. Once you get all the requirements, but then the game is. But at the same time, I was only going to be able to complete three games, and 3 games just barely.
Yeah, and
maybe that's why they did that.
Yeah, we should point out that it has a unique timing mechanism in this. So, based upon the number of players, you're going to start the clock at a certain position on the score chart, and every time you recall, for each worker you recall, including any of the these acrylic workers you gain, you're going to move the clock forward. And if you cross, as you score any of the icons, you get those bonuses. But also, as the timer goes through, if you move the timer, you get those bonuses as well. So that was unique, and I like that aspect of it.
No, that was actually a really cool mechanic. I would like to see that kind of thing again. So that was kind of beneficial. Overall, though, like I said, I'm giving it an 8. You said 7.5?
I think 7.5. I mean, I think I would have probably given a 7 until we played it with the Golden Pair edition.
Yeah. Versus me, I probably would have been solidly in 7.5, but then they added this, and I'm like, well, it's between 7.5 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to be generous and went with 8. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast, and hopefully you'll come hang out with us again. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.